Hello, everybody. I love to hear the conversations happening.
It's super awesome now. Like all the other museums, it looks
We have quite a few people.
it's the same.
There is snacks in the front. Y'all are free to grab some right now if y'all wish, or during the meeting or after, up to you. Go right ahead. The snacks are to celebrate the CFA Research Challenge that completed recently. So round of applause real quick for them. We'll go over to details in the meeting. We'll let y'all get some snacks and we'll settle back down.
Oh, they went to
Give me a thumbs up or a one in the chat.
I was like, actually. Now that you brought it up, what do you think? Right? I'm so easily convinced.
It's just a Wednesday.
That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and then it's something that
So what was y'all just have to like?
So the report was the first round. I was going to cover changes with security.
I was. And I got here.
And then we present again.
Trying to get in shape.
That's
Okay, now that everybody's settling back down, we can begin the meeting for today, everybody. We have quite a few topics to cover. Yeah, on Zoom. People on Zoom, can you hear me and see the screen? Thumbs up, chat. Okay, thank you, Daniel. All right, now onto today's agenda here. We do have a special sweet spot from Professor Sweet, like always, and he will go over the CFA, as well as we're going to announce our virtual social event. We have a date for that now as well. And pre-ordering polos. Polos will be announced at the end of the meeting too. First off, any outperforming moments for today, this week? It's been a long week. Outperforming.
I opened up like the Life Cafe, like where I work at, by myself.
Anybody else?
I'll go.
Yes.
This was on the weekend, but I got a 98 on Professor Sweet's paper.
Good job. Big accomplishment. One last outperforming moment. Anybody? It could be anything. Go ahead.
So I work at a tax firm and I just prepared an entire corporation's tax return all by myself.
And today's quote is Albert Einstein. This was actually one of the first quotes I heard and seen from the Investment Society when I recently joined a couple semesters back. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So compound interest. Interest on interest. It's critical, important, and earns you money on your money. Who doesn't want to earn money from money? So essentially, the way I use this in my own life, right, to compound my interest is I don't pay out my dividends in my investment portfolio. I just have what's it called? Reinvest the dividends. I hope everybody pick up on that too. Now to sign in, I changed up the code a bit, the QR code. It's a little fancier now. It might take a while to scan, so let me know if it works.
Good.
But sign in, and at the end, I will announce the two winners for the $25 gift card. You must have paid your dues to win. Reminder again.
I send it right now.
You can, yeah. Thumbs up. Everybody's good to sign in. Sign in. Okay, perfect. To cover the dues for your question, so the deadline is still officially March 9th, and the dues remained. One semester is $25 and 2 semesters is $40. I do keep track of this, and the payment methods are through PayPal or Zelle. I attached the email, and you can take a quick photo of this, or if anything, reach out to any MD if you have any questions on this. And to the market outlook with Anthony.
Good evening. So this is what we're going to be covering tonight. We got all our markets. We got our selected earnings for this week and next. We got a little bit on the news, some of the turmoil and looking forward, a random walk, and then the market watch competition. So here's our price change since last meeting. We can see all markets have moved just a little bit. We got US small cap with 2.9%. We got value stocks down 0.4%, followed by the developed markets at 3.1% and emerging markets for a 4% decrease. We can see here our price change year to date. All markets are down, with growth stocks at a negative 3.9%, the NASDAQ at 13.5%. Kind of interested on what's going on with Nike. I've been listening to a lot of the Bloomberg's Asian markets analysts. It's kind of interesting to see how China and some of the Asian markets play out with what's going on in the current geopolitical landscape. So here's our price change the last 12 months. You see the S&P is up 10%, 10.4%, followed by value stocks. Still see the big hit on oil as well as Ethereum. I can't even believe Ethereum's up 91.2%. And so here's our sectors. Energy, of course, is up 6.6%. Next, with utilities at 1.7%. Financials are way down, 5% decrease, followed by materials at 1.6%. Here's our price change year to date. See the energy at 27.8%. Consumer discretionary is a negative 14.5%, and real estate 13.4%. Here's our price change on them the last 12 months. See all markets are up except for communication services.
I think that's almost all Facebook. Yeah, that's a big stock down 30%, yeah.
And here's our heat map for this week. Does anybody see one of their favorite companies on there? There's got to be someone. Anybody?
Donald, top right corner.
There we go.
See Disney.
Walmart. Procter & Gamble's down. And so here's a crypto heat map. I was going to pull in a different one that's more like the last one that actually shows how these cryptocurrencies are spread apart, whether it's DeFi, whether it's smart contracts, whether it's whether it's linked to an actual to the USD, right? Whether it's attached to a dollar. Either way, this one should do for now. I do see that Sandbox is in the negative down there with their metaverse. They got a lot of stuff going on, but I have gone through so much trouble trying to convert tokens into sand. And so it's burned me out of a lot of money, actually. So here's our most anticipated earnings. This is a pretty good week. There's a lot of companies, about 250. You got Zoom. I'm curious to see how that's doing. Smile Direct Club, Wish.com, Dutch Bros. We got any Dutch Bros fans? No, they just built a new one on Rittiman. Colin, what's your favorite firm off of this list?
And I think, I don't know about favorite, but I'm most curious, like you said, about Zoom. I want to see how they're doing after COVID started to slow down a lot.
Definitely. I think before Zoom, I had used TeamViewer. If any of y'all have ever used that, it's very similar.
Which one is your favorite?
My favorite. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to be honest about this.
Big locks.
I'm probably gonna go with Jake and the TD Bank. And so here's some of our earnings reports, or some that were reported. You got Hillman Solutions. They beat on EPS at 0.06. Looks like their rev came in at 344.4 million. You got Surf Oncology. They missed on both by pretty big. And so here is a company I chose to pick on too. Maybe I was wrong on the last one. I guess it's Lucid is who I want to see. And so Lucid is a California-based engineering and automobile firm. They're one of the few that are emerging, such as Rivian. I've seen Fisker Karma, Teslas, and several others in person, not this one. Either way, they have delivered, though I did do a little dive into market sentiment, and there's a lot of people that are kind of conflicted with some of these data points. But I'm interested to see what they do in the future. And so y'all know I like my energy drinks. And so here is a little company called Celius Holdings. And so they came in great. They're an energy drink company. I got a call on the way over here asking to get on a Zoom call of just looking for more little companies. They beat on their rev. Looks a pretty good company. I hope to look into them more. And so here's our earnings coming up this next week. We got New Technologies, Sienna Corporation, Iteran Location in Continents, Vermilion Energy, and Squarespace. I really want to see what they're doing. And so I thought it was pretty, here's a story I found really interesting, is that the Russian ETFs are still trading. And so after diving into this a little bit, in 2015-16 timeframe, Greece, when their financial system shut down, their ETFs kept trading, and they were trading. And so how are they trading without the security behind it? Well, the analysts, they pretty much are just estimating them, right, based on their usual fashion. And then when the markets opened back up, they were very close. And so out of the 5 ETFs out of Russia, only 2 have meaningful assets. And I listened to a call earlier with their, I guess, CEO, and he's obviously trying to stay really optimistic. But, you know, he did say a lot of things, that the Russian markets close at like 9 a.m. and there's other little factors that play into it that maybe make it seem a little worse. I thought this was a pretty big story, only because Chelsea Football Club are huge. They've won the Champions League, I think, in the last 2 years. They won the EPL. They got the Wonder Kid, Christian Pulisic, all this stuff. Their owner stated he's going to sell the club and donate all the money, which is, I can't even fathom that. And so there's probably something going on with his home country there as well. I told Jake earlier that I was in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan in 2010, and I saw this Chelsea pub, and it was all dedicated to them, and I was pretty blown away by it. And it was pretty cool. It was a seasonal pub, and that really shows that how Russian fans really love this team, even though they're English. And so I've been reading and listening to this book, A Random Walk Down Wall Street, and this chapter, they covered speculative bubbles. And so during the 1960s and a little before, there was certain little buzzwords such as electronics, silicone, and it would pump up the earnings by 15 times. They would add another word and it would go to 25 times earnings. Similar fashion is the Japanese real estate bubble. They had their real estate valued at 5 times the US's real estate when we have way more land than that. And so it just didn't make sense. They tried to say that there was these you know, they were doing calculations to adjust for it, but it didn't add up. And then I thought this was a cool one that they covered too at the end of the chapter is Barry Minko. I saw that movie, A Con Man, maybe like 5 years ago or something, and that's on him. He was a wonder kid finance. I started this little carpet cleaning company, and in the end, it was pretty much a Ponzi scheme. I guess he got greedy or something. So we got the market watch up. Y'all want to take a picture of this link right now? You're feel free. The password's invest22. And I set the parameters on this one at $20,000. Maybe you can make a little bit more trades. Once again, here's the link again. I'm going to post it in the Discord and Telegram. We hope y'all can join. There will be prizes, correct, Anna? So the MDs can't win prizes, but for sure for second and third. And then if you want to come out and learn with me on Thursdays at 4, please do. Thank you.
All right, great job, Anthony. So a little surprising. Today I will be talking about Russia and Ukraine. That news actually came out, I believe it had to be within 30 minutes to an hour, right after my last presentation on Wednesday. So we're going to go over some of that global economic situation, see how that's being impacted by Russia and Ukraine, along with the commodities, mostly oil, energy, stuff like that. And then we got some news from the Fed that was recently released. And lastly, I'm going to follow up with a podcast recommendation. So right now, February 23rd, Vladimir Putin declared war on Ukraine. It was immediately followed with a bunch of missile attacks. Some interesting news here is that Russian troops were not really informed that they would be attacking. They were told the whole time that it was training on the border. It was just training drills, basic stuff like that. And then they got the call to invade. So many believe that this war is Vladimir Putin attempting to regain Soviet land. I was mentioning in my previous presentations that it could be NATO negotiations. So people don't really know where he's at, but if this is an attempt to regain Soviet land, very concerning because you have Poland and things like that. And if he moves past Ukraine, it could get very bad. So far, the death toll has reached 2,000. According to Ukrainian officials. I believe that's just on Ukraine's side. Their reportings, I'm not sure if that's counting Russian soldiers. But the good news, it's not going as great as Russia thought. They're facing some backlash from the Ukrainian army, Ukrainian citizens, stuff like that. If you've been keeping up with it, it's very inspirational. The support that Ukraine's been receiving through a lot of their people, it's really good to see the support that they have from everyone watching. And then Russian tanks are running out of gas and there's troops surrendering. So all of this together, Russia's facing a little turmoil that Vladimir Putin did not expect originally. Right here, we have a map. You can see exactly where they're going in. Can you guys see the cursor right here? Okay. So this is Kiev. This is their capital. You can see the arrows of where they're coming in. And later I'll show they have a convoy right now. They're trying to circle Kiev right here. And I'll go into that a little bit later. So I wanted to highlight President Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. He's been a war hero throughout this. You can see him pictured right here in full armor. He's been a hero. He's been the key piece in Ukraine putting up the fight against Russia. And something that I wanted to include in here is that the United States officials, they asked him if they needed to evacuate him from Kiev. He responded that the fight is here and that he needed anti-tank ammunition, not a ride. So that was very inspirational from him. He's got the backs of a lot of Western countries, a lot of Europe, and they're backing him throughout this war. If you followed on Twitter, he's made some tweets, very somber and sad. He said that pretty much that he expects to die in the capital of Kiev. Like that's the only way he's leaving is if Russia actually kills him there. but he's putting up a fight, and it's been really inspirational to see. But coming from his Twitter, it actually led Russia to ban Twitter and Facebook during the invasion. It's completely down in Russia. The people are not allowed to use it. And that's just some of the major Russian propaganda. They're trying to get their people on their side. They don't want to know what's really happening. They're claiming that this is a forced liberation. They're trying to liberate the country of Ukraine. And that's not at all what's happening. So here's the convoy that I mentioned before. This is a satellite image right here. Right now, it's circling Kiev, but Ukraine has responded. They've had some drone strikes on it. But the main thing that's bad about this convoy is it's causing lots of traffic due to the sheer amount of vehicles there. And Kiev is having difficulties getting oil tanks, supplies, and ammo and things like that into their capital. I believe this was about 2 days ago when this started. This came in response after the initial struggles from Russia entering Ukraine.
Just an update on that. That convoy hasn't moved in over 24 hours because they ran out of fuel and they can't resupply them.
Nice.
So yeah,
Russia sucks at logistics.
yeah, that's a great point. I briefly mentioned that earlier, that some of their convoys have ran out of fuel. I wasn't aware that it was this convoy, so thank you for that, Colin. But yeah, there's been a lot of videos circulating the internet right now of Ukrainian citizens just making fun of Russian troops. It's a little funny. Ukrainians have shown a lot of grit through this, and they're feeling pretty confident. So we're going to take a look at the Russian economy. The ruble is their currency. It fell to 108.014 to the US dollar from 83 on Friday. It dropped more than 20%, which is its worst one-day decline since September 3rd, 1998. I want to look at an individual stock right here, Gazprom. It's a Russian energy giant, fell almost 53% after the Western sanctions were announced. Some of these sanctions, I brought them up last week. They were some of the Russian central banks being banned from trading their currency. They placed a lot of tight sanctions around Russian oligarchs. And they pretty much just try to create a circle around them, pretty much send the message that Russia is alone in this. Here we can see the performance of Russian stocks on a London exchange, a sharp decline right about here. One of these is Gazprom, as I mentioned. Most of these are oil or energy. But the Russian stock market, it actually remained closed yesterday on Tuesday, which was some major news. So commodities. The IEA, International Energy Agency, released information on Tuesday claiming it would release 60 million barrels of oil from their stockpiles due to the Ukraine crisis. The IEA is made up of countries including the United States, Japan, and much of Europe. And the IEA wanted to send a unified, strong message to the global oil markets that there will be no shortfall in supplies as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So their attempt is to keep the price of oil below $100 a barrel, and it traded at $106 a barrel after the IEA announcement. We can see Brent and West Texas Intermediate. That was on one of Anthony's charts over there. But you can see the future prices have had a sharp increase. Some more commodities. They wanted to release 4% of its stockpiles, which is roughly about 2 million barrels a day for 30 days. Russia, they appear to be hurt by the current conflicts. There's a supply crisis going on, and many of the tankers are stuck in the Black Sea, and countries like Canada and Malaysia are banning Russian oil vessels. A lot of the banks are refusing to finance Russia and their crude trades due to sanction fears. And here we can see that Russia is second on the top global crude oil exporters and number one on the natural gas exporters in these graphs right here. So macro issues such as the conflicts going on in Russia, Ukraine, and the supply chain disruptancies, inflation, They've all led to soaring energy prices throughout the week if you've been keeping up with the market. And all these energy hikes in prices, they've led to a lot of investor fears of more inflation. So Fed updates. Recently, Jerome Powell said that he will propose a 1/4 percentage point increase at the next central bank meeting. That meeting will be March 15th and 16th. He's ready to raise rates by about 1/2 percentage point later this year if inflation does not peak. Let me go ahead and read you the exact quote on that. So he said, "We have an expectation that inflation will peak and begin to come down this year. To the extent inflation comes in higher or is more persistently high than that, then we would be prepared to move more aggressively." They've said that he would want to continue these 1/2 percentage point increases if his one in the March 15th, 16th doesn't go as planned and they don't control inflation the way they hope. So they're facing unprompted inflation warnings, as I previously mentioned, because of the high energy and commodity prices, along with the supply chain disruptions. So here's some market reactions. This was actually close of market today. The investors seem to react positively. I'm not sure the exact, it seems it's about up 2 percentage points on most index funds. But it was good because it's been a volatile market with energy prices, Ukraine conflicts and stuff like that. So I believe, Professor Sweet, the S&P was down about 2% yesterday, correct? So it bounced back up, which is nice. Investors are happy with the Fed decision. And lastly, I wanted to do a podcast recommendation. So I'm a big fan of the Wall Street Journal. This is their segment every morning, What's News. This is where I get a lot of my sources from. It's a good listen. The titles are pretty self-explanatory if you just want to look on Spotify. It's about 30 minutes per episode, and you can get a great deep understanding of what they're talking about. And it covers just about everything. Anything that they would consider news, they touch on. So it's a great source of media, pretty unbiased and very informative. So that's my presentation. JC, he recommended that I put a QR code for my LinkedIn. I know we're bombarding you guys with QR codes to scan, but if you'd like to connect, that's up there. Or if you have any questions, concerns, here's my email, or you can talk to me after the meeting. And next we have Juan Carlos with mergers and acquisitions.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about Chevron, the oil company, and they're planning to buy, or they already bought Renewable Energy Group for $3.15 billion. Okay, so a little bit about Chevron background. Chevron is an American multinational energy corporation. They manufacture and sell a range of refined products such as diesel, gasoline, marine fuel, aviation fuel, premium-based oil, and petrochemicals. And they're active in more than 180 countries, and some of the countries that they work more in is the US, Australia, Southeast Asian countries, and South Korea. More on Chevron, they own 5 US fuel refineries. And these are cities around the US, and it's based on the number of barrels they produce each day. And the biggest one is Pasadena, which is a city I didn't know. Then El Segundo, Richmond, Pasadena, and Salt Lake, which totals 1 million barrels processed a day. Now, Mexico goes through around 1.9 million. Their population goes over 1.9 million. China goes over 14.2 million. Does anyone know how many does the US go through each day?
50.
50?
27.
27? No?
34.
34? No.
19, right?
18. You got it. 18.3 million, which is obviously a lot. And lastly, they also manage Chevron and Texaco service stations. Now, a little bit about history. As some of you know, everything started with Standard Oil. In 1911, the government passed the Sherman Antitrust Act and separated Standard Oil in 7 entities. Chevron became Standard Oil of California.
7 sisters.
7, yeah.
Something called.
Okay, now another interesting fact about Chevron. In 1933, Saudi Arabia granted Standard Oil of California a concession to find oil. In 1938, they did, but in 1948, they found what is today the largest oil field in the world, Guahar Field in Saudi Arabia. The field was managed by its subsidiary, California Arabian Standard Oil. However, in 1973, the Saudi government began buying into the subsidiary because they thought, obviously, they were going to make a lot of money off it. By 1980, they had bought the entire company and renamed it to Saudi Aramco, or Saudi Arabian Oil Company. And today, Saudi Aramco in the stock market is listed in the stock market, is worth 2.276 trillion, just behind Apple. And then I was wondering, why would Chevron sell their subsidiary to the Saudi government? And I started digging deep, started doing some research, and I couldn't find anything. And I concluded that it was more like a political issue. They were like, if you don't sell us the Guahar field, we're just going to take over. So now, basically, if Chevron would have stayed with it, they'll probably have more money right now. Okay, now biggest mergers. In October 15, 2000, Chevron announced acquisition of Texaco in a deal valued at 37 billion. And what's interesting here is that 2 years before that, Exxon merged with Mobil on a $72 billion acquisition. And even though Chevron acquired Texaco, they still made half the revenue that ExxonMobil was making when they acquired Mobil. The second biggest merger was Uno Call Corporation for 18.4 billion. And this merger, like I mentioned before, they have a lot of activities in Southeast Asia. And these basically expanded their business in Southeast Asia. And it increased Chevron petroleum and natural gas reserves by 15%. Now, recent performance. In 2019, they had 146 billion in revenue and net income of 2.8 billion. That wasn't the case in 2020 when oil prices plummeted. In 2020, they lost 5.6 billion on revenue of 94.6 billion. But in 2021, they rebounded. In 2021, they had a net income for the entire year of 15.6 billion and revenue of 162 billion. And this is also interesting because at the beginning of the pandemic, whenever Chevron stock plummeted in March 2020, until now, it's grown 159%. Now, why did Chevron grew that much in 2021? Some facts here: profits in motor fuels, like I mentioned, premium oils. Motor fuels and chemicals increased 6 times from a year ago. Demand for oil doubled, and gas sold for 3 times as much as last year. Chevron said it plans to increase oil and gas output by 3% annually until 2025. So they still believe in more in oil than in renewable energy. And this is another interesting thing. Chevron and ExxonMobil said they will double down on oil production while European rivals shift to renewable energy. As we can see, I don't know if you guys have been read about the news about Germany and other European countries that were trying to shift into renewable energy and solar energy, and I think windmills, wind energy didn't work and didn't come out with the expected energy. So now they're having to go back to oil, and companies like Chevron and ExxonMobil are being big benefiters of it. And another interesting thing, they would have had a better year, but one of their refineries in Kazakhstan had a huge problem, so they couldn't work for a while. Okay, now why they are a little bit about the company they're buying, which is Renewable Energy Group. They're in biodiesel, which basically means they use vegetable oils, animal fats, and recycled restaurant grease to make energy. And Renewable Energy Group has 12 biorefineries, which brought 3.2 billion in revenue in 2021. Why would Chevron buy Renewable Energy Group? First, the company said it's another step towards clean energy. Second, they previously said that they wanted to get to net zero in operational emissions by 2050. The government and investors are also pressuring oil companies like Chevron to help fight against climate change. So they have to show some type of progress towards that. And this is one of the more specific towards the merger. towards the acquisition. Chevron also said they hope this will meet their goal of producing 100,000 barrels of renewable fuels by 2030, which is basically what Renewable Energy Group does. Horizon Renewable Energy Group, this is they're paying 61.5 per share for a total of 3.17 billion. Okay, like previous acquisitions, they always wait for the company to go down a lot in price. This wasn't the exception. Back in March 11, 2021, the stock was valued at $82.72. February 25 was a Friday, and the acquisition was announced on a Monday. The company was, the shares were trading at 43.81. And the day of the announcement was made, shares rose to 61.50. And another interesting thing about this graph is the following. On February 22, towards the 25, the merger hadn't been announced. And I believe there was some insider trading because the stock increased 34% in just 3 days before the acquisition was even announced. And then this is the graph of the actual acquisition. The day of the acquisition, shares rose another 40% to end at 61.50. Now, how did Chevron, the chart react? It's hard to tell because also the war happened in February 24 and oil started rising a lot. So there were a lot of things happening in Chevron stock. We could say 6%, but also oil prices were skyrocketing, as we can see from this chart. In February 24th, the war commenced, oil went to over 100. Then it lowered a little bit, but it's back to 114 now. So that's another thing to consider when we have stocks such as Chevron that they manufacture and sell their own oil. If oil goes up, the stock goes up and the profits go up. So it's hard to tell, but yeah. And that was it. Feel free to ask any questions regarding energy prep, what does it take, and more. Any questions about Chevron and the acquisition? No, perfect. Now with Mr. Sweet in the suite.
So do you think the SEC is researching why a stock went up 33% the day before a merger was announced? Do you think they're checking every single trade that happened that day? I would guess so. All right. Can y'all see my cell on the Zoom, or do I need to share it? Do I stop share and reshare? Okay. Okay. One thing I want to do is last week I showed you a bunch of numbers and then I realized when I got home, one chart backwards. So I thought I'd show it again. This chart, I had the dates reversed. And so I was talking, oh, y'all can't see it. So I don't know how, just a second, lo siento. Mejor? Yeah. All right, so I had this chart backwards. I had it latest to earliest to latest instead of oldest to newest. So I'll take it back. You know, I was trying to explain why the AAA was off so much, and now I see that it wasn't. So anyway, someone came afterwards and said, you know, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. So just let you know, these are spreads. What's a spread? A spread is a bond on a corporation that borrows money. Because they're riskier to U.S. government, you got to pay them a little extra. They get, you know, they get a little extra yield, you as an investor, because they may go insolvent. That spread is in basis points. So someone tell me what's 100 basis points? 0.1%, 1%, 10%, 100 basis points is 1%. What's 553 basis points?
5.53%.
5.53%. All right. So what is 24 basis points? 0.24%. So if something goes up from 1%, it goes up 25 basis points, it's going to be 1.25%. I remember we were borrowing money at my church, and the bank said, well, do prime minus 25. And he was like, wow, prime minus 25%, that's pretty good. I said, no, it's prime minus 0.25%. So he was multiplying by 100 too much. So anyway, these are the numbers I showed you last time. I haven't done this since I haven't put February in here. Would y'all want to see February? What do you think spreads did in February? So spreads do what during a crisis? they should widen, right? They should go out more. You remember you say widen when they go up, they narrow, and they go down. So they widen, they should have, but I don't know. We'll see. But one thing you notice is spreads today, you have to multiply these by 100. I didn't multiply these out, but so that's 9 basis points versus 24. So AAA historically is giving you 0.25% over treasuries. Why? Because AAA companies almost never go default. I don't think one has ever gone default while they're AAA. There's been those that have gone default, but they got downgraded on the way. But so 24. Double A, a little bit riskier, 65 on average. Today, they're not that far off from that. Single A, 100. Right now, they're at 87. Triple B, 159. Right now at 130. And I still think high yield is the one that looks bizarre to me because it's trading at a pretty narrow. It's jumped up some, but you know, to me, high yield spreads below 3% is, why would you bother? You know, a big chunk of them are going to go defaults, so why would you even do that? But anyway, this is the 5th percentile. So 5% of the time, the spread's higher than that. So we're at the 5th percentile on AAA. We're a little bit above it on the high yield, but we weren't just recently. So anyway, so sorry I had that reversed. But still, you should be pulling these kind of numbers. So you start getting used to what the averages are and what makes sense. You know, when you should be shocked at a number. We are at a pretty expensive market just about everywhere. Everything looks expensive right now. The second thing is I wanted to show y'all, if I can find it here. Boy, which one it is, my photo. Oh, it's in the presentation, okay. All right, so I got this email. Y'all probably can't see that, but I got this email. This is for they want help in notifying your students. Upcoming webinar open to all students. Advancing your career, the CFA program registration links. That's on Tuesday, 29th. You can see what the link is there. And then Wednesday, the 30th. So if you want to start getting involved in the CFA, it's a good way to network and start figuring out. I don't know if you can actually join the local CFA chapter. It's pretty expensive to be a member. You get free lunches that no one goes to anymore because of COVID. So I don't know what they're doing with all our money, but they're pretty good. They have good presentations. I loved one of their presentations because there's a presentation on cryptocurrency. And the guy got questions he couldn't answer. And one of our UTSA society members, Andrew, was there. And he eventually got up and finished the presentation for them. So I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, can y'all see that enough to be able to write it down? Maybe not. Maybe we can make that available. So yeah. And then the other thing is the CFA Research Challenge. So this happened this last Saturday. It's a pretty big deal. I don't know how many teams there were this year. Globally, the last time I looked, there was over 1,000. We had a team go a few years ago, so probably not that high this year because they only took one team from our region. But we're in the south or southwest region. It's the largest, or at one time, I don't know this year, but it was the largest region other than India. So the largest region in the world other than India had one of the largest regions. We had 21 schools, big name schools, UT Austin, obviously, Rice, SMU, the typical names that you would think, old Southwest Conference type of schools. Pretty rough. They got a really pretty horrible company, I thought. Really small company. I was looking at his bid ask. His bid ask is like $5 bid, $7 ask, which is, something's wrong with this company, but very small company. And I was shocked some of the other teams had a buy recommendation in this stock. And I was like, how could you have a buy on this stock? But anyway, they had to do research. You don't get to pick your company. They picked the company. So we had a team. I was somewhat aggressive last semester. I wanted a good team because we haven't made it to state in a couple of years. And I was like, we got to get back. So we had a somewhat of a dream team, when the US goes to the Olympics for basketball and, you got all these millionaire basketball players. That's kind of what we did this year. We got our star players, and they They got their company, they got together. They didn't really need any help from me, which is kind of nice. That's kind of a good thing of getting star players. It doesn't take much of my time. We talked some and, they had to decide what they thought on this company, do some valuations. A really pretty tough company to figure out because it's a little bizarre. And then on Saturday in the morning, they presented. Their presentation went really, really well. And then they got Q&A afterwards. Their Q&A was exceptional, which is, I think, a really important part of the competition. Every single team member answered a question. None of them were thrown off by the question, really, really strong. And I thought, wow, they got a good shot of winning this morning round. So they did win their section in the morning round. It was between them and Rice, right?
The second round, yeah.
In the second round. In the afternoon, it was just two teams. They used to take two teams from our region, but this time they're only taking one. So they had to beat the other team. So I listened to the other team thinking, man, this team's not nearly as strong as ours. I thought, man, I think we got this one. And our team did a great job presenting. And then the Q&A came and they didn't do as well on the Q&A the second time around. They got some really squirrely questions the second time. But that's the way the competition is. There's a lot of serendipity. There's a lot of just pure chance. It's kind of the opposite. We had a team make it to nationals a few years ago and they messed up on their presentation, but they were wonderful on the Q&A, but they didn't make it on. So, you never know. The judges, the very first team we sent many, many years ago, they had Circuit City. And boy, they were a good team. I thought they had a good chance to win. And they got so nervous because they were our first team that their first presenter forgot the other team members' names when he was introducing them. So you're not in good shape when you can't remember people's names that you've been working with. But this is our fourth team to win our region. So they beat 20 other teams. So they get to represent Texas. I don't know how you put it in March Madness terms. Maybe this is Sweet 16. I don't know.
Final four?
I don't think it's the Final Four because there's several hundred teams still to go, but it's a big deal to win this thing. It's very, very tough competition. So, Colin was on it, Eduardo, I don't know if William's in here. Two of our team members, Bond and Serio, they've already graduated, but you can compete. If you graduate in December, you can still compete. Think about it, looks great on the resume. So they've now got something really incredible on the resume. Even if they don't win the next level, I don't even think it's the best team wins at the next level. The next level, it's so much random chance in the next level. So who knows? But you go in and do your best. And part of the problem with the next level is not every school has the same company. Every school in this weekend had the same company because they pick a company in our state. But once you go to the next level, you don't. And some companies are better, So I think the team that's going to win is whatever team got the best company to do, not necessarily the best team. So when do y'all present? When are y'all?
March 20th.
March 20th.
That's the Sunday after spring break.
But it's probably taking them a couple of days. I don't know. I doubt they're going to do
Yeah.
all it in one day.
I don't think we'll hear back that day. I doubt we will.
I mean, they used to do it all on a Saturday and the same day, but they used to do actual presentations, but they've cut it back quite a bit, probably because of COVID, but also probably because of time. So that's an incredible accomplishment. Our dean is ecstatic. Our head of our department, Dr. Baynot's ecstatic. They're sending in her email around. They're probably going to get some articles here. I wish the San Antonio news channels would report it, but it's not a sporting team, so no one cares. I think it's more impressive than a sporting team because it takes a lot more, I think, skill and coordination. I don't know. It's almost y'all. This team got along pretty well. We've had teams in the past where I thought that we were at risk of losing lives, but this team worked pretty well together. They stayed pretty friendly. So if you're interested in that, you need to start thinking about it probably August, September. I think the deadline was, November sometime. You had to
Register your team. I think it was like early December, yeah.
So yeah, sometime in the fall. I'll be pressuring because I know what students I think would do pretty well in that. You don't have to take my security analysis class to compete, but it does help. Colin hadn't taken it yet, but the other four had that class. That helps a little bit because you get a few tools you can look at. So anybody have questions on that? I mean, we should be really, really proud.
Someone asked if the presentation was recorded.
It was recorded. I don't know when it will be available.
We haven't gotten it yet, so they said they would send it out.
You want to watch the morning one, not the afternoon one. But,
Yeah.
I will say on the Q&A, one thing I really liked that William did, in the afternoon that got some rough questions. But this one guy asked a question where he used a phrase that it was his own phrase, didn't make any sense, but you never know that as a student. Someone says a word, you don't know the word. So do you bluff it? Or do you have the courage to ask? And if you have the courage to ask, then what if it is a term like, what's an interest rate? I didn't know, I didn't catch that. That would look pretty embarrassing. But William said, what does outlier mean in that context? And I'm glad he did that. That to me shows real courage. I've seen several presentations with students didn't know what they're talking about, but they try to wing it, and that is so obvious and it's so painful. So if you don't know, you just say, hey, I don't know that term. Can you explain it to me? If it's a term you should have known, then you've lost and that's it. But be honest, because bluffing it makes it even worse. So I encourage y'all to think about it. This is one of those things. Remember in our first meeting, I said, do what scares you. So you got to do what. I don't think any of them were scared because they've gotten pretty comfortable presenting and doing this type of analysis. But so all right, I think that's it for me. Congrats to our team.
It's definitely a huge accomplishment. Congrats. Maybe y'all two can take a photo for our social media at the end of the meeting. Okay, so next to our agenda, some announcements. So our social event is confirmed for next Tuesday, March 8th. Hope y'all can join us. I explained this in the other meeting, but real quick, it is scribble.io. And it's gonna be pretty simple to join. We're gonna host this directly through Discord. You're gonna see the channels. There's gonna be 3 labeled social event. You join one of those and it's pretty simple to play the game. Brendan explained it. It's just a link and you join the lobby. And then you sketch out and try to guess what they're drawing. But it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have all or some MDs showing up for sure. We're gonna be hosting for y'all. Definitely join March 8th on Discord at 6:30 p.m. So we'll be promoting that in the chat. And once again, promoting for everybody to join a class, learn something new, strengthen a skill. And I specifically want to promote my class now that I'm going to be teaching it after all. It's called Portfolio. I added it near the end. Portfolio optimization using Python. Sounds fancy, but anybody could really join my class. It is preferred that y'all have a PC so we could download the software we're going to be using, but it is going to be taught Friday at 10:30 a.m. It'll be 50-ish minutes long, but it is just purely virtual. It's actually not going to be an FSC because we need to download a particular software that I don't believe we could download in the FSC. But it'll be fun, and essentially, you don't have to know too much Python, but it would be good. I'm gonna teach y'all how to use Anaconda prompt and certain packages like Y-Finance and such, the basic ones. But we're also gonna hopefully reach at the end of the class to teach y'all how to actually create a risk model and show it out there. Now the pre-order for your polo, another QR code, and it's also a little fancy. But scan this, let me know what size you are and what female or male shirt, polo. But we are going to take these pre-orders. You don't need to pay right now, even though it is pre-order. It's more to get the sizing, how many we need to order already, because we do want polos. We need to show off our investment society merch and get people to join. Y'all can also order or label that you want like 3. You could get some for other people who aren't necessarily members. So to bring in another item on this, the prices for the polos will be at a discount for those who have paid their dues, and those who haven't paid their dues, it'll just be a little higher of price per polo. And we try to match it to the exact original polos from the prior semesters and whatnot, like the same material, and it is embroidered. It's not a paste on. So hope everybody got the QR code. We'll be sending this in the social medias as well. And I added a slide now, so I won't forget. The gift card winners for tonight are, congrats. winner, quick jumbo, is Brian Boo. Congrats. Meet me at the end of the meeting right now to get y'all's email and get your gift card. And that closes off for today's meeting. Join the network, stay connected, and chat with everybody here.